Good evening, everyone. This is Shantae. My analysis today. It's Tuesday, June 2nd, 2020. As you know, it was Blackout Tuesday. Very interesting day in our news. Normally, you're not supposed to post up what you normally post, but you don't stay off social media. But I didn't really post at all today. I didn't really give a time of what I'm going to do in my analysis, but I promised and I vowed to myself is to keep people informed and to keep people educated because I had different interpretations of the of what was Blackout Tuesday. I was completely confused, but I was standing in solidarity, but at the same time I was confused. So now I had the correct interpretation because I was going to reconsider, but now I got the correct interpretation. I'm just going to post up what not I normally post, but posted something to educate the people, to keep people informed and not to be silent. So therefore I'm going to come with what I have today. As you know, with the coronavirus, because we are still in the midst of a pandemic, despite the crisis that's going on in our country, we are still in the midst of a pandemic. So we are 1.87 million cases of COVID, and we have about 108 deaths, I believe, according to the John Hopkins website. Or is it Google? But I'm pretty sure it's in the 100s. It's somewhere around there. It's over 105. In terms of testing, we have no available testing here. But I have a little bit of numbers for you. I know according to the Morning Consult, which is a polling site, it shows 78% of Republicans approve of the job that Donald Trump has done to his response in terms of the coronavirus. 31% of the voters blame Trump of his handling of the coronavirus, which I'm like should have been higher, and 16% disapprove. 60% of Republicans disapprove of his handling of the coronavirus. But as you know, he said he prevailed and said he was doing a good job. So, I mean, here we are, America. But in Cuomo's briefing, Cuomo did explain a little bit about the coronavirus. He warned everybody that we are still in the midst of a pandemic. He said, let's talk about the steps and gaining back some perspective again. The country's pretty much in turmoil. We have a pandemic, and now we are in the middle of a culture. I can't say culture war. We're in the midst of, just crisis, social and racial crisis in our country. And we're leaderless. Our country is in a bad state of leadership. So all we have is our local officials, which is kind of sad. Cuomo's strategy is basically with the COVID-19. He said you want to inform people first and you want to offer a plan and then ask for support. And then he just broke it down on, what was going on in our country. We're dealing with multiple crises, from racial disparities. We're dealing with police brutality. We're dealing with a pandemic. And we basically have no leadership. And the civil unrest in our country is pretty much crazy. Well, and that being said, with the COVID cases, a number of hospitalizations, new cases at the same day, and the mortality rate is down. 58 people died last night. But we still have issues within our country, which is the civil unrest. And of course, as the protesters peacefully protest, you got some, I can't say bad apples, but you got some folks that's there for their interior motive. One activist, Tamika Malley, said there are people that come there for peace and they'll come there for their own interior motive. And some of these people that are looting stores, they're not protesters. They're not part of the peaceful march. They're not part of the cause. They just want to erupt and steal shit because that's what they're doing. I don't think these looters are organized groups, and some of them are, young 20-somethings. Don't know the exact age demographic, but I do know for a fact is they haven't paid attention to, when you loot, it causes, especially in communities of color, it causes, or even other places downtown, it doesn't solve anything. And it also cause like plans to gentrify a neighborhood. I know back in my parents' day, in the 70s, when it came to the blackouts, they looted. People did loot. And it caused, almost nearly caused, and that was part of the, one of the focal reasons, besides the war on drugs, besides, people burning down their buildings in 1968 due to Martin Luther King's assassination. That plan for, it cost millions of dollars to rebuild the cities, but it also caused gentrification, which people were priced out. So when you loot or burn things down, you really kind of like not solving the problem. I mean, it's grabbing people's attention, more so the rioting versus the looting, because looting and rioting is two different things. That's like looting and protesting are two different things. They're two different things, and looting does not solve anything. Burning shit down don't really solve anything. People think it does. I don't believe it does, because you're not making a statement. You're basically just enraged and anger. When you peacefully protest, you're making a statement. You're making a positive statement, and making a positive change. Even with Martin Luther King, and they peacefully protested. And of course, they got spit on, dogs unleashing them, but they peacefully protest. They did not burn shit down during the Civil Rights Movement. They didn't. And these protesters, they are protesting peace. They're taking a knee. They're handing out food, giving out water, chanting, rejoicing together, fellowshipping together. That's what peaceful protest is about. I am not against protesting. If it was no COVID, and if I was, like to be cluttered with so many people, I would not mind protesting. But this COVID, some people not want to wear no mask, and then you got jackasses outside. That's a bad combination. But that was Cuomo's briefing, and he did say, and he did release a plan on how to make demands, and one of them is voting these folks out. But he also had a laid out plan. I think I wrote it down somewhere. Independent investigations on police brutality, discovery of records, basically disclosure of records, no chokeholds, and also ban national chokeholds and excessive force and education iniquity. So those are the things that he wants. So, and more on that, I guess you could watch his briefing, because his briefing is always available on YouTube. Getting into the actual politics of things. So protesters are breaking out there were a lot of protests, in places like here in New York City, Seattle, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Boston, Chicago, all major cities, and Minneapolis, all major cities across the United States of America. And some of them on a curfew. And even though I really don't like the curfew thing, I guess it's for the actual looters who come and exploit the peaceful protests, because the protests, like I said, they're very peaceful. One of my friends is protesting right now, and it's extremely peaceful. But at the same time, it's like you got the people that exploiting it, making it bad for the people that's actually protesting peace and justice and and racial equality. These folks ain't about racial equality. They don't give a fuck. They don't. And that's just what it is. And that's the truth, and that's the truth to be honest with, So that's just what it is. I guess more developments on Floyd's case. So far, we know Joe Biden is attending his funeral, I believe in Minneapolis. And like I said, Reverend Al Sharpton is delivering the eulogy there. So there you have it. As I said, I explained the definition. I'm going to explain the definitions of looting and protesting. So protest first is a statement of action expressing disapproval of objection to something, and to loot is steal goods from a place, typically during a war or a riot. Technically, I don't think this is a riot. It's more protesting than a riot, because like I said, these protesters are not burning anything down. They're just chanting. So the fact that these looters is coming around, they're just basically causing havoc and posting things and saying that they're going to get our loot on. So you see a lot of these places are boarded up in New York City because some of them were breaking into, and some of them don't want their stores to be breaking into, which you can't blame them. Because what does looting does? It don't solve nothing. I talked to my father tonight. He grew up in the era of the civil rights movement. He was a teenager by the time, King and them died and the riots happened. And he said, looting don't solve nothing. Rioting don't solve nothing. Burning shit down don't solve anything. People are enraged, but what does it do? It doesn't solve anything because drugs came. And then later on the blackout, it was a bad economic depression throughout the 70s. It was. Things are starting picking up until Carter came in office. So, with you burning things down and then, looting, what is that solving? Absolutely nothing. So there you have it. In terms of the Republicans, the Republicans basically was asked about Trump's press conference yesterday and why he stood in front of the church. They said, "Oh, I didn't see that. I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say." So the Republicans are still defending the resident of the White House. So this proves right here that they have every reason to be voted out in November, and it's up to us to vote them out. Most of them are up for re-election. I hope we can flip the Senate blue like we flipped the House blue, and we continue to remain the House of Representatives being blue, and of course the White House executive branch to be blue. So it's up to us to go out and vote. This here should give you a clear indication of why we should go out and vote. You may not like the candidate that is the presumptive nominee, but at the same time, our country is bleeding. We're wounded. We're wounded by the pandemic, and we're wounded by the civil unrest in our country. We're ruined by the racial disparities in our country. We're fucked up. And, we need leadership. And leadership has to come now. That is all I'm saying. In terms of the presidential politics, Biden did deliver a speech, and the speech was very informative. It was very good. I love the speech, and I think it was very presidential. Hopefully, he can keep up this, and he may, win. But he needs to pick a black woman, as I said, and I'm not going to stress that again, but he needs to pick a black woman, and that's period. As for Trump's tweets, we all know Trump is out of control, and we have to ignore his tweets because his tweets is honestly, it's not doing the country any good, and we're leaderless at this point. We are. We definitely are. And like I said, I wasn't going to be on his social media today, in this particular handle, because I'm always on Instagram all the time, but I had to voice my opinion because, my heart just bleeds and it just breaks every day. And I'm standing in solidarity with everyone, not just a Blackout Tuesday, but I'm standing in solidarity. And that's why I always do this video, so I can educate my people to know what's going on. Because with all my knowledge, I have to put it in some use. And I wanted to put it in some use where I can educate the people. I'm not doing this to get clout. I'm not doing this to get noticed. I'm doing this because I give a shit. I give a damn about what's going on in this country. I care about the economics of this country. I care about the finances of this country. And I care about, the historical content of this country and the people. I care. I care so much that I went to college and studied business and did almost did a minor in history, but did not complete one course. I just care about our country so much that it hurts me every day to see a man who cheated to get in and just doing everything just to hurt this country. So I say to the folks, please, I urge you to vote. your vote counts, and it counts so much. Because if we don't vote, we're going to be stuck with this man for another 4 years. And if this is bad, I can imagine in another 4 years, it'd probably be worse. But let's not think. Let's speak into existence that Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States, and he will have a black woman as his VP. Let's just see it.